All right. Welcome in to the history and impact of avian film part 2. Let's jump right in. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the video camera. In 1878, the first verified motion picture is recorded. 1896, the first motion picture is displayed to an audience. And in 1927, The Jazz Singer is the first motion picture with sound that is released. So, as far back as 1878, we are recording video. Here's an early video camera right here. So early 1900s, you had videos and movies that did not have sound. They would be accompanied by a live performer the in the movie theater with like a piano or something like that. This is an early projector, what the videos would be played through. And then this is the Jazz Singer. This is the first ever motion picture with sound released. It was released by Warner Brothers in 1927. So that's kind of the first part of the early days of the video camera. All right. In the 1930s, the cathode ray video camera is introduced, and it's used for broadcast, movies, all that stuff until the 1980s. That is this one right here. It's going to be your main kind of video camera that is during that time. There's a lot of improvements on it, but basically cameras that take film are going to be the cathode ray video cameras. And they are, like I said, used for broadcast until about the 1980s. Then in the 80s, you have the first digital cameras pop up. So this one right here is a Sony, and it was invented in 1981. It is the first digital camera that was ever invented. All right. Then in 1986, Nikon comes out with the first DSLR camera ever invented. So 80s is a big time for the video camera. And then right around 1999, 2000, you have the first high definition video cameras. This is a modern Sony high def camera. Alrighty, so all the way back to 1878 to where we are at, the ones that we're using, is a big jump. A lot of technology changed. Okay, the telegraph. The telegraph is invented in 1895. It's the first form of wireless transatlantic communication as a telegraph. This is very important because we can go ahead and communicate with people that are across the ocean just by a telegraph line. This little stopper right here, you would press it down, it would make a signal on the other side of the telegraph line, and for each letter of the alphabet, or they had a system of spelling out things with just presses of a button and making a beep on the other side with a long beep or a short beep or something like that. So that is a telegraph. And then in 1906, you have a very important invention called the vacuum tube. Lee DeForest invents the triode vacuum tube. Now, this doesn't seem like much in the grand scheme of things, but this is the first signal amplifier. This paves the way for loudspeakers, for guitar amplifiers, for anything like that. This is the piece of equipment that makes it possible. It paves the way for the first radios, the first television sets. These are the first record players. These are all using these vacuum tubes. And it's very important with having technology be audible and listenable, and knowing what you're doing. The first soundboards that record audio, the first really good ones anyway, are utilizing these vacuum tubes. All right. It leads us into radio. In 1895, Marconi invents radio technology. In 1912, the regenerative circuit. Let me try that again. In 1912, the regenerative circuit makes radio reception practical. In 1919, you have the Radio Corporation of America founded. This is RCA. That company still exists today. They're the first big radio company. 1921, you had the first AM radio broadcast. So it took from 1895 till 1921 until you were able to have that first radio broadcast after the technology is invented till we start to see radio. This is Marconi and his early radio, and this is a 1920s radio right here. Okay, so that brings us into microphones. In 1876, when Alexander Graham Bell invents the telephone, he also invents the first microphone. So this right here is Alexander Graham Bell's microphone. It's called a liquid microphone. It wasn't very good at all. It was quickly replaced by the carbon microphone. So in 1886, Thomas Edison invents the carbon microphone. This is what you see in a lot of the old broadcasts of radio broadcasts and stuff like that. And it was the primary microphone that was used in telephones up until the 1980s. So that's the carbon microphone right there. In 1916, the condenser microphone was invented. 1925, Shure Incorporated was founded in Chicago. 1931, the dynamic microphone was invented. And in 1931, the ribbon microphone was also invented. So between 1916 and 1931, your three primary types of microphones are invented that we still use today. That technology was since 1916 all the way to 1931, and we still use it today. 1939, Shure introduces the 55 Unidyne dynamic mic. It's this one right here. It's the first really popularized dynamic mic. You see pictures of Elvis using this microphone, anybody that was big at the time. Not even just, in the 1940s. Elvis wasn't until the mid-50s. But all the way up until really the 60s, you see that Unidyne 55 dynamic mic used really prevalently. Then in 1965, Shure introduces the SM57. This is the best selling, along with the SM58, which is this microphone, but with a windscreen on it for vocals. This is the most highest selling microphone of all time. And that was created all the way back in 1965. We still use it today. If I only had $100 to buy any microphone, it would still be this Shure SM57 right here. It's only $99, and it is an amazing microphone. Okay, audio. There's a lot to cover here. 1895, the first record player is released. It's called the gramophone. In 1950, Les Paul invents the overdubbing method. 1958, the first commercial stereo disc recordings are made. 1963, you get the cassette tape. 1980, the first digital multi-track recorder. 1980 is also when the Walkman is introduced. It's the first portable sound listening device, and this one's for the cassette player. 1982, you got the CD player invented, and then important, 1984, you have the first Macintosh computers introduced. Now, this is important because in 1987, DigiDesign releases Sound Tools, which is a predecessor to Pro Tools, which is the biggest selling and the most prevalent sound recording program even today. In 1987, they released Sound Tools, which is the predecessor for it, and it is introduced for the Macintosh computers. In 1990, CDR is introduced. So even though it was invented, the CD player was invented in 1982, it's not until 1990 until the CDR was invented, to where record companies and stuff started releasing things on it. 1997, you had DVDs introduced, and then in 1998, you have the MP3 player introduced, which is a digital form of listening we have now. All righty. So, no, that was a lot, but that is a history and impact of AV and film.